Hello and welcome to the show. Now, back in the days of Forza 4, I distinctly remember the old Jaguar XFR as being one of the worst cars in the game. It was terribly slow, didn't really go around corners, and didn't really get stopped. Now, the new Jaguar XFR-S that we have here is a significantly better car. However, I was curious to see how this one would do when given a silly car build. I actually do quite like this new XFR, but we are going to be giving it a lot of power to try and deal with, because this car can have the 6-litre V12. Did not realise the Jaguar could have the Ferrari V12 that is, well, the most powerful engine that can be swapped in two cars. So we're going to be having nearly 1,200 horsepower in our Jaguar, and that is quite a lot of power for a four-door saloon car. It is relatively heavy, just looking at the weight, 4,500 pounds to begin with. Now we will save some of that with the various race upgrades and so on, but this is still likely to be a relatively heavy car. We're not going to have the same crazy power to weight ratio, although that is some pretty sizable front tyres actually. 285s on the Jag, which is nice, so we're going to have 325s on the rear. Might not be too bad or a handling car. It's all going to come down to the handling. I don't quite know how this car is going to react to having this much power in it. Now, having that little bit more weight can give us some more stability. We have seen that in the past. The crazy light cars, the vehicles that are around the £2,000 mark, have been having a lot of issues, especially with the circuit that we're going to be taking it around. The bumps have caused issues for the cars and so on. That's not going to be the case with this Jaguar. It should potentially be a little bit tamer, but having said that, it could still be quite oversteery and silly with, well, anything with this much power. You always run that risk. Roll cage actually doesn't add as much weight as I was expecting, considering it is a relatively large four-door car. Needs a relatively large roll cage, just simple size-wise. That's actually not too heavy. Weight reduction, okay, we can get down to 3,600 and 95 pounds. It'll probably might get a little bit less after putting all of these engine bits and pieces on the car. Things like exhaust are going to save us a fair amount, hopefully. So yeah, it's an interesting prospect, a car like this one. We are going to get up into R class, which is also nice. 952 horsepower so far in the Jaguar. There we go. Now we're past the 1,000 horsepower mark. It may well finish off as a sort of a mid R class. So this is going to be kind of looking possibly around the little bit more sensible region of the table, which is an odd thing to say about it. Yeah, if the extra weight adds some stability and means that we can kind of make the most of the power in places that other cars potentially haven't, this could actually go quite quickly. Or if it's like the Jags of old, it could be going quite sideways. It could go either way, but there is definitely only one way that we are going to find this out, and I'm hoping it's not going to try and murder me too much. Of course, it is here to the Virginia International Raceway, where we will test out the Jaguar. It is going to get 5 laps around this Patriot alternate layout in an attempt to go as fast as possible. Now, our current leaders, the Toyota NASCAR and Bugatti Veyron, are going to be relatively safe. After all, they are up in P-Class. The Jaguar is not going to be challenging them for lap time. Perhaps the more interesting area is, can the Jag get into the top 10? Can it beat the Porsche 550, BMW M6? We're looking around a low 110, perhaps a 1.9 from this car, potentially, if things go relatively well with it. Well, there's always going to be wheel spin off the line, but once we're up into third gear, we are good to put all of the power down. Now, braking may be a little scary with this car, considering we're going very quickly, and there's a lot of weight behind the Jaguar in comparison to some of the other vehicles that we have driven. So that is something to definitely be watching out for. A little bit of understeer is actually handling pretty nicely through these slightly faster corners. This particular circuit doesn't really have any high-speed turns on it whatsoever, but this slightly faster section, it is not too bad down to try and get the power down out of these corners. There is, there's a fair bit of wheel spin. The car does go sideways relatively easily, but I have driven much worse. The old Jaguar XFR was a hell of a lot worse from standard in the dry, I think, than this one here is in the wet. Just got to watch out for that bit of understeer. It is, you kind of think you turn into a corner, you think, oh yeah, that's fine, and then it's just really not. You can't quite get away with being flat out, and it's sort of close. It's just if you get a little unlucky, it'll break into wheel spin. 180-ish miles an hour, but are we going to get stopped? No, we're not. Not quite. Well, we didn't end up in the wall, at least, which is progress, I guess. Yeah, we are going to have to watch out. It's pretty good on the acceleration front down there. You know, it's never likely to challenge the likes of the Alfa Romeo 33 that has the same engine as this and is half the weight, pretty much. It's never going to challenge that in terms of acceleration. The Alfa, the only car down here to have cracked 200 miles an hour around this circuit, but getting out to 180 is not too shabby. The traction out of the final turn isn't too bad. You have to be a little bit careful. Yeah, even in fourth, it is happy to spin the wheels up, trying to push the car more and more through that section. Not quite working. Oh god, and I can't. There is a kind of a surprising understeer going on in this. You sort of turn into a corner and it's like, oh yeah, that's fine, and then all of a sudden it's not. All of a sudden you're carrying too much speed for, in that case, the second part of the corner. Really something you're going to have to watch out for, I think, or I'm going to have to watch out for in these next couple of laps. That was better under braking into turn one here. Oh god, mind the curbs and the puddles and whatnot. Really got to be aware of the understeer. I think it's a kind of a case of front end sort of got turned in and I'm ready to try and put down a little bit of power, and then that's what's catching me out. I'm not trying to carry too much speed through a corner for this relatively large car. Come on, get turned in down there and then we'll run it up the hill. It's proving to be quite nice and stable. We're not having any problems, certainly with the bumps down through turn one. It's not being horribly twitchy. If it does break sideways, it's relatively easy to catch it. We're not having silly stuff on its side like the little bubble car has had. You know, there's never going to be a fear of rolling this, I don't think. It seems nice and well planted, even if you do bounce it across the odd curb here and there. The pillar is not in a great place for seeing that final corner. I have seen that with a couple of the right-hand drive cars, where you just struggle to see into that final corner because of the pillars there. Right, let's once again get on the brakes earlier. 1:11 on that lap around. Can we go quicker than that? I would like to think so. With the Jag, we're going to have to be perhaps a little bit braver. I'm throwing the car across the curbs through that opening section there. Okay, don't get on the power too soon, otherwise we understeer. Oh, and then if we don't understeer, we apparently get a big slide. That's not quite what I want from the Jaguar, but never mind. Oh, throw it up this section. Yeah, the front end perhaps. You can kind of tell this is a bigger, heavier car. Certainly some of the change of directions are not quite as... It's not bad, but it's not quite as agile as some of the other cars we have seen. Playing it dangerously on that curb is never a good idea. I'm not stopping at all for this section. We're going to go and play off in the grass. Pretty typical. Does not like that. I don't like that final corner with this car. It's really unhappy going around there. Okay, we're going on to the final lap with the Jaguar. Can we get it any quicker? 179 miles an hour into the braking for this first corner is actually very, very good going. Getting up towards that 180 mark. That is up there with some of the very, very quicker cars around here. It does pretty well on the whole traction front out of that final turn. Come on, get that front end turned in. We're going to across the puddle. Fortunately, that's the puddle we can get away with. It's that one there on the inside that you really don't want to hit. You can get away with the puddle on the outside, but yeah, the inside one through that downhill S's section is quite a vicious bugger. So we are okay. We are neatly through this first part, although we have lost some time. I wasn't expecting that. I thought I actually got that downhill section quite nice and cleanly. Sticking it in fourth through here does seem to do the trick, keeping the car stable, keeping the car relatively happy. Although trying to get it slowed down for this final section is perhaps where it struggles the most out of the last quarter. Get on that power. Once we're sensibly up into third, we can boot it. 110.4, there we go. That's better on the final lap there. I'm not quite sure I lost time in that middle sector. It did actually seem relatively fast to me. So obviously I did a very, very good job on it in the previous lap there. It's not too crazy for the Jag. It is relatively drivable. The understeer is the bigger issue here. We don't have too much in the way of sideways. I mean, it's with this much power in the wedge, it's easy to slide anything. But when trying to drive it sensibly and certainly using fourth gear, it is plenty good enough. You know, out of that final corner, actually finds very, very good traction. You can get on the power very, very early. Good straight line speed. Okay, considering the weight of the car as well, power to weight ratio, and this is nowhere near as impressive as a lot of cars. So the 1 minute 10.4, I'm just going to find the exact time because this is a very, very crowded part of the table. A 10.466 will put the car into 11th place. It can't quite crack the top 10. It is a tiny little bit down on the Porsche 550 Spider. It does, though, beat the Cadillac CTS-V, beats the Charger Hellcat, and the Honda S2000. Does lose out to the M6, the Aston Martin Vanquish. Not quite into the 109s around here. Yeah, surprisingly half decent car. So now it is time to find out just how quick the Jag will go in a straight line. And of course, that means heading to Le Mans. Now, the Jaguar does have one of the most powerful engines that we have seen in cars here, so we are likely to see some pretty high top speed. Wasn't quite expecting 254 miles an hour, I will be honest. That would be good. If we can get 250 plus out of this Jaguar, that would be very, very good. 261 it reckons it can do. This could be fun. This could actually be quite almost quite an upset. I mean, I was expecting 240-ish, but not quite 260 from the Jaguar. That is a lot of speed, and let's just have a little tinker around with the gear. No, okay, we want longer gears as we can get. Sometimes it overgears the car, and this one I was wondering if it was, but that didn't seem to really be the case. So 261. We're probably not going to be using 7th or 8th gear in this. With this longer gear ratios, we're probably not going to be bothering with them, and it doesn't really matter if they're used or not in this. We're still going to get up to the speed. Okay, Jaguar, time to perhaps throw a little bit of an upset potentially into the mix here. If this can do 260, that would be quicker than the Carrera GT that had more power than this. I mean, I know it's a modern car. The Jaguar is certainly not bad aerodynamically, but I wasn't expecting it to be quite so good. I mean, we might only be talking 10, 12 miles an hour down on some of the, very fastest cars, the Alpha 33, Jaguar D-Type, and those sort of vehicles. And that is, not quite what I was expecting from this car. Well, let's see what we can do as we fire it onto the straight. It's relatively, a little bit bumpy across there. It's relatively easy, though, to drive through those opening few corners. How are we doing? Acceleration is not the craziest we've seen, but 190 miles an hour by the sort of start proper of the straight is not too shabby. Again, you've got to bear in mind the weight of this car that is sort of holding it back acceleration-wise. We've had the same engine in cars considerably later. So, yeah, it's pretty damn rapid. That's why it was getting to such good straight-line speeds down the Virginia circuit, up to 250 miles an hour in the four-door Jag. We're going to crack 255. We're going to get another mile an hour before the corner. No, it looks like 255 is all we are going to be able to achieve. It's lovely and easy around the corner. Back to picking up speed now, but we're back to 254 before we are going to have to get on the brakes, so we might not stop in time. Okay, no, we're good. We're not going to end up in the gravel. We're not quite going to make the corner, but we're not going to end up in the gravel. Ooh, 255 miles an hour from the Jaguar. Does run out of puff a little bit towards the end of the... I have no doubt that this can do the 260, but we don't have a long enough straight to test the car. It just can't get up to its top speed quick enough down here. And that's perhaps not too surprising. We have seen a few cars struggle with that, and that's probably not helped by, you know, the larger amount of weight. But 255 miles an hour down here is damn good going. That is really very, very good going from the Jaguar. It will put the car into... well, it will go in the top 10. This time it goes into 9th place. It is a mile an hour down on the Carrera GT, the 1,300 horsepower Porsche. Only a mile an hour down on that. It is only a couple of miles an hour down on the Lotus 11. Admittedly, that did try and take off, but still, that's really good going. It beats the BMW 1M, another car with the maxed out V12, and the C63, another maxed out V12 as well. Quicker than both of them. It's 5 miles an hour faster than the 1M. It's, yeah, very, very impressive. It's almost 10 miles an hour quicker than the Aston Martin Vanquish. I'm really impressed with just how fast this damn thing is in a straight line. And as I said, I have no doubt it could do the 260 given a longer straight. It's just, I think, the weight's holding it back a little bit in terms of acceleration, and we run out of straight, and I can't do anything about that. It's the longest straight we have to play with in Forza. So, yeah, that is one hell of a fast car in a straight line. However, that is going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.